Once upon a time, a girl's life began in a small village where her mother struggled to make ends meet. She was her mother's only child, a bright and hopeful soul. Her mother, unable to afford her care, decided to send her to the city to live with her sister. The arrangement was supposed to be temporary, but her mother believed it was the best decision to give her daughter a better chance in life. When the girl arrived at her aunt's home, she was greeted warmly at first. The house was bigger than anything she had seen before, and for a moment she thought she was lucky. But soon things began to change. Her aunt's husband was a stern man, always watching her with an unsettling gaze. At first, she ignored it, thinking it was her imagination. She focused on helping her aunt with house chores and doing her best to fit into the new environment. One night, everything changed. Her aunt's husband came into her room while everyone was asleep. The girl didn't understand what was happening at first. He told her not to tell anyone, threatening her with harsh words that terrified her. She cried silently through the night, unable to speak. The next morning, she hoped it was a bad dream, but the pain in her body reminded her it was real. The girl kept quiet, too scared to tell anyone. Her aunt was too busy to notice her growing sadness. And when her mother called to check on her, she forced herself to sound happy. At school, she tried to focus, but her grades began to drop. She couldn't tell her friends what was happening. Who would believe her? She was just a child. As the weeks turned into months, the abuse continued. Her aunt's husband would buy her small gifts and tell her to be a good girl. She didn't want the gifts, but she didn't know how to refuse them. Every time he entered her room, her fear grew deeper. She tried to find ways to avoid him, staying out late after school or pretending to be sick, but nothing worked. Her aunt, noticing her mood swing and lack of focus, began to scold her. She accused the girl of being lazy and disrespectful. The girl wanted to scream the truth, but the word wouldn't come out. She felt trapped, as though no one would believe her even if she told them. One day, her mother visited for a moment. The girl felt a glimmer of hope. She thought about telling her mother everything, but when she saw the tired lines on her face, she couldn't bring herself to do it. Her mother was working too hard in the city. How could she add to her burden? As the abuse worsened, the girl began to feel numb. She stopped talking to people and avoided looking in mirrors. Her once bright eyes were now dull, filled with a sadness that no one seemed to notice. Her teacher began to comment on her performance, but no one dug deeper to understand what was wrong. The girl started dreaming of running away. She planned to leave one night, but fear held her back. Where would she go? What would she eat? The world outside seemed as cruel as the one she was living in. She decided to endure it, hoping her mother would come for her soon. But things only got worse. One day, her aunt caught her crying after an incident. Instead of comforting her, she accused the girl of causing troubles. The girl tried to explain, but her aunt wouldn't listen. She blamed her for trying to seduce her husband, calling her names that cut deep into her heart. The girl realized she was completely alone. As time went on, her health began to fail. She became pale and thin, her body bearing the scars of the abuse she endured. At school, a teacher noticed the change in her and tried to ask questions, but the girl shook her head. She was too afraid to speak the truth. But if her aunt found out, what if no one believed her? That evening, the man came into her room again. This time, the girl fought back. She screamed and pushed him, but he overpowered her. The noise woke her aunt, who burst into the room. The girl thought she would finally be saved, but her aunt turned on her instead. She slapped the girl and accused her of trying to destroy her marriage. The girl's world crumbled. She felt as though she had no one left to turn to. That night, she decided she couldn't take it anymore. She found a knife in the kitchen and hid it under her pillow. When the man came into her room again, she acted without thinking. She defended herself, and in the struggle, the knife pierced his chest. For a moment, everything was silent. The man fell to the ground and her hands trembling. Her aunt came running, screaming. When she saw the scene, the girl didn't know what to do. She had never felt such a mix of fear and relief. The police arrived shortly after, and the girl was taken away. She was placed in a cold cell where she cried for hours. When the officers questioned her, she told them everything. For the first time, she let out all the pains she had been holding inside. Some of the officers listened with sympathy, while others doubted her story. Her case became a sensation, drawing attention from the media. Some people supported her, calling her brave for standing up to her abusers. Others labeled her a murderer, saying she should have found another way to escape. The girl didn't care what people thought. She was tired of hiding. During her trial, a lawyer took up her case. The lawyer argued that the girl had acted in self-defense after enduring months of abuse. Witnesses, including her teacher, testified on her behalf, describing the scene they had seen in her. The girl's mother wept in the courtroom, finally learning the truth about what her daughter had endured. After weeks of emotional testimonies, the court declared her not guilty. The girl was freed, but her journey was far from over. She moved to a new city with the help of activists who supported her. They helped her get therapy to heal from her trauma and encouraged her to return to school. Over time, the girl found her voice. She began speaking out against child abuse, sharing her story to help others who felt trapped. She wrote a book about her experience, and her words inspired many. Though her scar remained, she used them as a reminder of her strength. Years later, the girl visited her old village. She walked past her aunt's house, feeling a mix of anger and pity. She didn't stop to say hello. Instead, she went to her mother's home where they embraced and cried together. The girl had finally found peace. Her story became a symbol of hope for others. She started an organization to support abuse survivors, ensuring no one would feel as alone as she once did. Though her journey was painful, it led her to a place of strength and purpose. And through it all, she learned that even in the darkest time, there is always a way to rise again. Thanks for watching, and do subscribe to my channel.